welcome to How She Owns It, a podcast dedicated to female entrepreneurs and boss moms who left their 9 to 5 to own their time, their finances, and their joy in life by building their own businesses. In this episode, I have Tamar Weinberg, who is CEO and founder of Tamar. So welcome to the show, Tamar.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Pauline.
So tell us a little bit about your journey so far and how you became CEO of your own company.
Yeah, sure. So I have been working in the startup world for about 15 years or so, and really had experience in just basically everything when it came to running a business. I was always like employee number 2, employee number 4, employee number 6. I had a lot of experience. Like I was able to really gain so much learning to kind of the doer mindset. Basically I was doing everything, including cleaning the toilets, if you will.
Wow.
My virtual businesses, though, they were all virtual. So you really couldn't do that. But it was like, like the stuff nobody wanted to do. I was always like, yeah, sure, let me do it. I got a great plethora of experience doing that. I never thought I would actually start my own thing, to be perfectly honest, though.
Same as me.
But it just happens, it kind of falls into your lap. It's kind of like you never know where you're going to find your spouse or your partner. It just kind of like happens without expecting it. And that's sort of like what people were telling me when I was younger. But when this happened, basically I've always wanted to kind of work at a company, and I felt like I hit my salary ceiling and never was like number 2 at the just to be like a co-founder with somebody. And everyone was like, you're a generalist, which means you generalize in everything. You're not like, you're a jack of all trades and a master of none, which is like, yeah, sure, why not? It's a good skill to have. But when companies are already formed, you can't really kind of join your own thing. Mm-hmm. Anyhow, I was, having the experience that I had, I ended up falling into a depression after I gave birth to my firstborn son in 2009. And that depression was not, it was postpartum depression. It was like a mild depression that consistently continued through the birth of my son's 3 younger siblings. So I have 4 children now. And I was slowly falling lower and lower and lower. And finally in 2016, I gave birth to my youngest, and I hit a rock bottom. By then I was also codependent, and I really just felt like I was losing it all. Everything was falling apart. And I ended up finding I would wake up, I would go through the motions, and that was my life. I sort of show up for my children so they wouldn't see that their mom was a mess, and go to bed. And one day I was looking around, and I found this tiny little vial of perfume in a cabinet, and I put it on, and like that was everything for me. I guess, when you're depressed, you don't care about what you look like. You definitely don't care about what you smell like. And given the fact that I didn't care what I smelled like, really kind of changed everything for me. I had no expectations. Everybody puts perfume on. They want to feel seductive to an audience. They want to get the external appeal. But for me, I had no desire. I didn't even have the internal appeal. What do I care about what other people think about me? And that mindset was like, all of a sudden, like having, we have 5 senses, and yet the 5th sense, I think the sense of smell is relatively dormant. A lot of people, I talk to the majority of people, and they're like, yeah, you're right. You raised some interesting points. And some people are like, yeah, you know what? I love my smell. Like I love the sense of smell. But for me, that I'm probably in the majority where I feel like smell doesn't mean anything. And it was relatively dormant, and all of a sudden, like I used it, and it felt great. And I said, scent, we need to do something in scent. And I got so excited about it. I started going to like the perfume stores here, and I put on perfume literally from my wrist all the way up to like my shoulders, and I smell myself, and I get so excited about smell. And I took advantage of like the free cycles and the buy nothings and eBay lots and all these things. And I was just like, this is amazing. And I got so excited.
It's so interesting that you got into perfumes, like your whole story, because you are a tech, like you did computer science and you worked in tech, and then it's like a complete, you're in kind of in a very much a software space, right? And then you move to like a physical product. So it's such an interesting story. Were you working while you were going through your depression?
I was, and I was faking it a lot because I knew that I needed to support my family, and I knew that I had no ability. Like if I lost my job, I would have been a complete mess. Thankfully, I didn't lose my job. My job was eventually eliminated, But by the time my job was eliminated, I was actually in the throes of doing this. So it was still a little bit of a devastation, but nowhere, my mindset was so much better. Like I wasn't in my depths of my depression. So I ended up focusing on like doing something with perfume, but I wasn't entirely sure what it was going to be. And it took about 4 months to figure out what I wanted to do. And I said, I'm going to launch a perfume brand, a unisex perfume brand with the objective of mental health, happiness in a bottle, self-care, self-love, self-acceptance. And worked for about 1.5 years on just perfecting 2 initial scents. And I did a soft launch during COVID. I was, COVID, obviously, I was a little bit derailed as part of this. I mean, who wouldn't be? Thanks, the pandemic, everybody's lives changed.
Yeah.
And yet I said, you know what, this is the right time to do it because we're at home and we're not feeling good for ourselves. And this is what has been my message before COVID, before the pandemic.
In my previous episodes, I actually just got, I had a lady come in and she was talking about, well, she's one of my mentors, and she was talking about creating her new makeup line. So, if someone's listening to this, I always like to keep my podcast very educational to the listeners. And if someone's listening to this and thinking, I've always wanted to start a perfume line, how do they go about doing that?
Yeah. So it's interesting because, first of all, I love that you're asking the question because I don't think that for me, it's a competition. And I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs sometimes want to hold their secrets to their hearts and they don't want to share those things. In terms of this, I mean, I will tell you, it's not easy. I mean, you have to put in investment in terms of first of all, I didn't create my own perfume. I have a story and, starting your own perfume, there are communities online that enable you to learn about perfume making. It's basically the lab is like essential oils up the wazoo. Like people own like maybe tens of thousands of little vials of essential oils. Basically that's what they look like. And then they just dump it in that's really the perfume, the art of and science of perfumery is kind of what the lab looks like. That's basically what they do. And they do very, very precise, like all these little things. And they're like, this works with this and that works with that. That's stuff that I didn't want to set myself behind. Like that would have taken me 10 years back in research and development. So I didn't do that. I came up with a concept based on all the experiences of spraying the perfume. And I ended up basically hiring a guy to do it. And it's not, like I said, it's not cheap because, creation of a fragrance is a couple $1,000s. And that's just the fragrance itself. That's literally, and you don't even own
the chemistry.
Yeah,
the chemistry of the fragrance.
The chemistry and the creation of the first part and the second part, it's really not even the ownership of the formula. If you had the full formula, what would you do with it? You don't know what to do with it. It's too complicated. Then the next step, and I don't want to deter people, but it's not easy. You can't just be like, oh, I want to start a perfume company. Let me just do it. Like, I mean, this process for me, I'm literally in my 21st month now, my 22nd month rather. And I'm not even like completely, I'm at market, but I'm like sort of at market. I had a crowdfunding campaign. It was a successful campaign, but it wasn't where I wanted to be. I would have been a lot further ahead if not for all the craziness. Anyway, then the next part is like, after you have the formula is you have to get a guy who basically creates the bottles for you. You have to buy the bottles. Bottles themselves are not cheap. I mean, here's a bottle. I'm showing you a bottle right now. I know this is audio only, but this is what my bottle is.
No, this will be on YouTube as well. It's a video.
Oh, it is a video?
Yeah.
Oh,
there you go.
I should have dressed up then. I should have cleaned up my office. My kids make a mess. So I have to
blame me on the kids.
Now that I know.
Hey, it's all about authenticity in this podcast.
Yeah,
You're a real boss mom. You're a real boss mom. There it is.
I should have known better. So that's actually what you see over there is the package on the floor because I'm trying to figure out what I want to do. So, I mean, this is like this thing. This is one part of the product. This is a different part of the product. This is like everything. Eventually, it all adds up. So, I mean, and then you have to do your boxes and then you have to do your shipping. And I don't even have labels on here. There's no label on here. And then you have to get regulatory stuff. You have to get certifications. All in, you're talking about like $20,000 to $40,000. So it's not like something that like, I want to do it tomorrow. Let me just do it. I feel like I've scared people, but at the same time, I'd like to support them.
That's a really great, I guess for people who are looking to kind of shortcut all the expenses to an extent is kind of like partnerships, right? I guess that's how celebrities do their own fragrance. They have like a
Well,
company reach out to them and they just kind of use them for branding and marketing, right?
yeah, I guess, but that's the other way. If the celebrity clearly has $20,000 to just drop
Yeah.
the other side,
Beyonce
yeah,
had 40K to splurge on her fragrance.
yeah. It's just like, oh yeah, that's easy. So, so this is completely the opposite. I mean, I'm coming from nowhere. Maybe I should have partnered with a celebrity myself because that could have done, but just doing that would be very difficult. So
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you so much for that. That's super, interesting. I don't know much about the perfume business, so super, super interesting.
neither do I.
That's really cool. And the way it happened as well. Let's go back to kind of your story, because I think a lot of people don't talk enough about, postpartum depression and kind of juggling all of that while, well, trying to provide for your family. And I'm sure a lot of people are depressed, but just not really tackling it because you gotta do what you gotta do. So do you have any advice for our listeners who may be going through that cycle, and impart your wisdom of how you dealt with it?
So first of all, I had no awareness really that I had it.
Yeah, I think a lot of
Looking
people
back,
can resonate with
yeah,
that.
a lot of people, like when I looked back after I hit my rock bottom, I'm like, wait a minute, I really haven't been happy since the birth of my son.
Mm-hmm.
And I really I used to attribute it to my codependency. I used to attribute it to the whole, basically the complete dissolution of a relationship that I thought was very important to me.
Mm-hmm.
But then I look at it, I can't, first of all, you really have to take control. It's really all about mindset. And I realized that there's no way to blame anybody but myself on this. So looking back, and now I'm in the mental health space where I need to do that. That's important. I had a chat the other day. A friend reached out to me. He said, my brother is going through a lot. Our mother passed away in 2019. He just survived a heart attack and he's going through marital strife. He's really depressed. What can I do for him? And I'm glad people are coming to me in that way right now, because I'm just hoping I can sustain that. Because I've had my ebbs and flows of depression as well. But right now I think I'm in the right place, in the right mental headspace. And I think it ultimately comes down to mindset. I think when you lose control in a way that this guy did, he's basically, the word I like to say is rumination. You're ruminating, you're dwelling. Ruminations are debilitating because you feel like you've completely lost control. So if I'm sitting there and I lost my job and I was also depressed and I lost my relationships, like all of a sudden I would be like, everything bad is happening to me. And you internalize that enough and it starts to really destroy you. When you have a child comes into your world, and all of a sudden you lose a tremendous amount of control and the freedom that you used to have. If you internalize that so much, eventually that manifestation becomes you. And that's how I have started to feel about, that's why depression has, in my case, has been so, comes and goes, because when something happens and I let it, if I internalize it so much, eventually it will become who I am and I will become that manifestation of that depressed feeling.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It's important to have the right mindset coming in. And that's sort of why, I created my perfume. It's actually mindful fragrance. You put on the perfume, you have a mindset in the morning. This is what I want to do. This is, I'm going to feel great today. It's going to be a great day. You go like this throughout the day. I'm trying to normalize the act of wrist sniffing and taking that throughout the day and realizing it grounds you back into the present, and it jolts you. Everybody's like, spend some time meditating, do some mindfulness activities. Mindfulness activities and meditation activities, both of those are usually something you need to put at least 10, 15 minutes into.
Yeah.
I don't have that time. And I've been trying, and then I sit there and I sat for 15 minutes and I'm like, what did I just accomplish? I didn't. So it's funny because everyone's like, who's your competitor? You have major competitors with like Gucci and all these different brands and Tom Ford, and maybe, yes, I kind of have to, but I feel like my biggest competitors are Calm and Headspace, because it is literally, this is an act of mindfulness and it's a completely different way of looking at perfume and a completely way of looking at yourself.
I'm so intrigued about what it smells now. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
You gotta send me a sample across the pond.
I will figure it out. But yeah, right now the two perfume scents that I have is a pear and a patchouli, and the other one is a smoke and a vanilla.
Amazing. That's really interesting. That's so intriguing. So as we wrap up, where can people find you? And the question I like to always ask is, what has been your proudest moment in your journey so far?
All right. So that's what has been my proudest
Yeah, it
moment.
always takes a little bit of a think,
Yeah,
a bit
I
of a
know.
heavy one.
All right, let me keep thinking about that one. I would like to think that okay, yeah. So I think the proudest moment in my journey is, having people come up to me and telling me how my story has been so raw, and my being using my vulnerability has been able
Hmm.
has allowed other people to feel like they're not alone. I've had some people say perfume has actually brought me out of depression too. There's that. I think, one of the things perhaps going back is one of my friends, Lisa, we were really close back about 10, 15 years ago, had a falling out. I've certainly regretted that, but, we've sort of had a rekindling. It's just not at the same level that we used to
Hmm.
be. And knowing that she knows about my story, and she's like, I am so appreciative of Tamar sharing her story. I feel that there, I'm just incredibly thankful, having people like Lisa and other people coming to me and saying to me, Tamar, I really appreciate you talking about yourself and getting very vulnerable and very raw in front of me, so that I am no longer feeling like completely isolated in my own feelings, and
Yeah.
it's a validation of their own. As far as finding me, Tamar.com, very easy. If you want to follow me, myself, and I'm on Twitter as Tamar. I'm on Instagram as Tamar. The brand itself, it's Tamar, Tamar, uppercase with a period at the end. That's facebook.com/Tamar Essences. And the Instagram is Tamar Essences, and Twitter is Tamar Essences, and LinkedIn also Tamar.
Amazing. Yeah, I think that's like perks of having such a unique name. Not a lot of people.
I don't know about that. There was actually, I will tell you, you're in the UK, right?
Yeah. How
So
many?
Tamar, it used to be Tamar.com, and it was in
Mm-hmm.
the UK. I'll
Oh,
just put it
okay.
that way. So I did acquire it legally.
Ah, amazing. Okay, well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for being on the show and it's sharing your story and being vulnerable. I think a lot of people will definitely take a lot of wisdom from that. So thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.